Although all true crime cases are disturbing in their own way, the stories of people who vanish without a trace are perhaps the most creepy. There's something that haunts us about these missing people cases. The knowledge that in their darkest moments they were all alone, their mysteries unsolved for years to come. While we don't know exactly what happened, we know a little bit about the chilling backstories that led to these mysterious disappearances, and hopefully one day we can find more answers. Number 5. Stephanie Stewart was 70 years old when she vanished without a trace in Alberta, Canada, on the outskirts of Jasper National Park. After failing to check in with a colleague, she was reported missing and never seen again. As far as true crime stories are concerned, the circumstances are quite mysterious. When she vanished on August 26, 2006, Stephanie was stationed at the Athabasca Tower, where each summer she watched with binoculars for forest fires from a 40-foot tower in the center of a vast national park. The only way to access the tower was through a single desolate road. Apart from the daily radio check-ins, Stephanie was entirely alone, as she had been for the past 13 summers. On the evening of August 25, 2006, Stephanie radioed her usual observations and then spoke with family members on the phone around 9 p.m. A worried employee drove out to the tower after she failed to check in the next morning, and he found a dark and disturbing scene. Stephanie was nowhere to be found, but there was a pot of boiling water left unattended on the stove. It seemed like she had vanished into thin air. If that wasn't creepy enough, the employee also discovered red stains on the exterior steps leading up to the cabin, evidence that could only belong to Stephanie since the area was so isolated. An immediate theory emerged that rather than a crime scene, a wild animal of some kind had attacked Stephanie. Her car was still parked outside the lookout, which lends further credence to the theory that she didn't leave of her own volition. First responders also thought that an animal attack was a more likely possibility than a true crime. However, police have since changed their stories, and now suspect her strange disappearance could have had a criminal element. Several items were missing from her cabin, including a quilt, a bedsheet, 2 pillows, and a gold watch. Crime scene investigators would not share any additional details to support their theory of foul play, because these details could compromise evidence they needed to build a criminal case. A 2021 article reported that 15 years later, police have still found nothing further to help explain this mysterious disappearance of Stephanie. But they believe that there are people out there who know something about what happened. Anyone with information about this unsolved case should contact Canadian police at 78-865-2455 or Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. Number 4. At the time of his mysterious disappearance, Duane Murphy had a young daughter and a steady job in Georgia, which required him to travel regularly. Loved ones described him as a warm and giving person who no one would ever expect to be involved in a true crime story. On June 2nd, 2017, Duane was on one of his regular business trips and staying with coworkers in a hotel in Laredo, Texas, near the US-Mexico border. Duane's coworkers last saw him at 7 p.m. at their hotel. The following morning, June 3rd, he went missing from work. The people he worked with later found his phone, keys, and wallet still in his room. A missing person report was filed, and his fiancée in Georgia was notified. Investigators soon uncovered some strange facts about the mysterious disappearance of Duane. After leaving his coworkers on the evening of June 2nd, he was seen by police behaving erratically in the area of downtown Laredo. Duane's behavior was dark and disturbing. If the crime reports are true, then he was screaming in the nude and was eventually released from custody after an overnight hold at a psych ward. This was the last time he was seen, before strangely disappearing. Despite having a relatively clear-cut timeline of events before Duane went missing, officers could find no trace of where their missing person might have vanished to after his short hospitalization. Some sources do report that he might have been sighted on the Mexican side of the border by the gateway to International Bridge 1. Mexican authorities were notified, but due to legal obstacles, Duane's potential border crossing greatly complicated and stalled police procedures. There have been no updates on his mysterious unsolved disappearance since 2017. His family and friends are left to wonder what exactly might make a 39-year-old man vanish so suddenly, and if there is a criminal component involved. Anyone with information about Duane is asked to contact the Laredo PD at 956-795-2800 and reference case number 1714469. Number 3. Diane White was a teenager hopelessly in love with her boyfriend, Benny Webb. She decided to stay with Benny when her family moved to Dolan Springs, Arizona in 1959. Although she visited her family at least once in Arizona, Diane did not seem to want to stay for long. Her reluctance was part of a disturbing backstory leading up to the darkest moments of her life. Soon, 18-year-old Diane announced she was pregnant and wanted to marry Benny. Her father disapproved, but her mother and younger brother traveled to California to attend her wedding. This would be the last time that any of Diane's family members would see her before her unsolved disappearance became a real crime story. Diane wrote home regularly for months after her wedding. The letter was mailed on or around August 22, 1959. Then, for more than a year, no one heard anything from Diane or Benny. Finally, in late 1960, Benny sent a bizarre letter to Diane's family that shocked everyone. In the mysterious letter, Benny wished Diane well and indicated that he thought she was living with her parents in Dolan Springs. Diane's parents wrote back to explain that she was not living at their house and asked what had happened. He replied that he had given her $100 and put her on a bus to Dolan Springs. The last he heard from her was a letter informing him of a miscarriage, and after that, nothing. Sometime after Diane vanished, her father went to Benny's hometown to retrace her last steps. Benny's brother, who was the chief of police at the time, allegedly intimidated Diane's father out of town. The next lead came when Diane's full name was later used for a dentist appointment. In August of 1961. The visit did not yield any helpful evidence to get the mystery solved. In 1967, the case took an unexpected turn when a crime scene investigation found the remains of a young woman in southern Arizona. A forensic investigation determined the woman had taken her own life. Diane's parents refused to identify the remains, rejecting the theory that their daughter would have ever done this to herself. For 30 years, Diane's parents refused to cooperate, and the case ran cold. In the late 90s, Diane's younger sister pushed for DNA testing of the remains. And in a strange and unexpected ending, Diane's parents were proven right. The young woman was not the same person as their missing daughter. Diane's unsolved disappearance is still a total mystery, though. Although both of Diane's parents have passed away, her younger sister continues to search for evidence to prove their crime story true. Meanwhile, Benny Webb still refuses to cooperate to the point of claiming to have never been married to Diane, despite government records clearly indicating otherwise. Today, Diane Marie Webb would be 81 years old. Anyone with information about her unsolved disappearance can contact the Phoenix Police Department by calling 602-534-2121 and asking to speak with Detective Stewart Summershoe. Anonymous tips can be made by calling 480-948-6377. Number 2. The mysterious disappearance of Chiquita Scott, a 24-year-old mother of 2 toddlers, began after she left work in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, on June 25, 2014. When she failed to pick up her children from daycare that same afternoon, Her family became suspicious and reported her as a missing person. At the time she vanished, Chiquita was working 2 jobs, at U-Haul and as a caretaker for disabled adults. Her true dream was solving crime cases as a police officer, and she had recently completed a ride-along with the Miami Gardens Police Department. Sources are conflicted as to Chiquita's true plans on the afternoon of the 25th. According to some stories, she had planned to meet up with her ex-boyfriend, Carl Watts, before picking her children up from daycare. Chiquita and Carl had a tumultuous relationship that had gotten physical at times. At the time of Chiquita's disappearance, Carl had a criminal record for his role in an attempted kidnapping of a teenage girl. The criminal was caught on camera trying to force the girl into his car while she waited at a bus stop. Carl also had 3 prior criminal arrests for kidnapping. When interviewed about Chiquita, Carl made police detectives contradictory statements. At first, he confessed to seeing Chiquita the day she disappeared, but the times didn't match up. If the story was true, then he would have seen her while she was still running errands with her mother. Then he changed his story and said he hadn't seen her at all. However, by cross-comparing cell phone signals, police knew for a fact that Chiquita and Carl were together on the day of her unsolved disappearance. They also showed that he was in the same location where her missing car was later found. Carl is the #1 suspect in Chiquita's unsolved disappearance, but there is a lack of physical crime scene evidence that would implicate him in her case. What's really creepy, though, is that in addition to Carl's record of kidnapping and assault, he may have been involved in the demise of 2 other romantic partners. In 2009, Carl was dating a woman named Vicky Simmons, whose body was found in a hotel room in South Florida. Although no criminal charges have been filed in her case, Carl is reportedly a suspect, and Vicky's sister thinks the strange vanishing could be traced back to him. Additionally, in April of 2022, Carl Watts ended his wife, Shandell Harris, in a crowded community center. Shandell had recently asked for a divorce, and Carl had reacted in a dark and disturbing way. As the story goes, the following day, he approached Shandell during her 12-year-old daughter's swim lesson to ask her to reconsider their estrangement. When she said no, he drew on her at close range and didn't spare her life. Carl is currently awaiting trial on second-degree murder charges. He continues to be the primary suspect in the unsolved cases of both Vicky and Chiquita. Anyone with information about Chiquita's disappearance or Vicky's murder can call the Miami-Dade Crime Stoppers at 305-471-TIPS, Broward County Crime Stoppers at 954-493-TIPS, or the Fort Lauderdale Police Department at 954-828-5700. Chiquita Scott also has a missing persons Facebook page under the name of Find Chiquita. Number 1. There isn't much information available about Rebecca Becky Alsup prior to her doomed relationship with Craig Wood. She lived in the area of Williamsville, Missouri, and had a close relationship with family and friends. A post in the Facebook group Missing Persons Support Center claims she has struggled with addiction for many years, stemming from the early childhood loss of her mother, which she witnessed. At some point prior to 2016, Becky started a tumultuous relationship with Craig in a camping trailer on his parents' property. An unnamed witness stated that sometime that year, Craig offered him 3 cars, a motorcycle, and half of Becky's life insurance policy if he would take her life. Craig then asked the witness what would happen if a concoction of substances were to be injected into Becky's legs. Not long after their conversation took place, Becky was admitted to the hospital where both of her legs had to be removed. It's also alleged that at this time, Craig attempted to have Becky removed from life support, but was denied by hospital staff when he failed to provide legal proof of marriage or power of attorney over Becky. Becky was discharged in a wheelchair to Craig's care. It's unclear if Becky was aware that she was living with a true criminal, or if he made up a fake story to fool her. Although she was given prosthetics, Becky was still healing when she vanished without a trace just a few short months after her hospitalization. She left her wheelchair and prosthetics behind, which is strange. It's extremely unlikely she could have traveled anywhere without them. There are some other creepy facts surrounding her mysterious disappearance. Becky had told several people that she believed she was in danger, and she had been working with friends to create an escape plan. On February 17, 2017, a friend came to their home to check on Becky, who was visibly distraught. Becky told her friend that Craig had stolen money from her and destroyed the SIM card on her phone. She also showed her friend some marks from him on her cheek and arm. Later that day, a man came over to the trailer and found Craig and Becky were both present. The next day he returned and Becky was missing, but her walker was in the couple's burn barrel, still smoldering. The identity of this man has not been released, but he's believed to be the last person besides Craig to see Becky alive. In July of 2019, Craig was charged with taking Becky's life. The criminal charges were dismissed later that year at the request of the prosecution, who stated that they didn't have enough evidence but planned to refile a new case at a later date. In August of 2021, Craig was sentenced to 7 years in prison on the much more provable charges of stalking and harassment related to Becky's case. However, the true story behind her disappearance still remains officially an unsolved crime mystery. Anyone with information about Becky's case can contact the Wayne County Sheriff Department at 573-224-3219. There's a $5,000 reward for information. In addition, Becky's family run a Facebook page for her that shares updates and collects information called Becky Alsup Missing Person. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.